So I'm here today with Jonathan Croft, who's the CIO of Société Générale Factoring. And welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, Michael.
And I'm talking to Jonathan today in advance of our Receivables Finance International Convention, which will take place on the 26th and 27th of May in London. And Jonathan will be presenting there with Kevin Day on a subject that is big with everybody in this sector and in banking in general and finance, and that is the world of regulation. So, Jonathan, regulation is a big part of receivables finance, and some might say quite a burden on receivables finance providers, banks in particular. What would you say are the main regulatory pressures experienced by receivables finance providers today?
Well, today we have many different aspects. The first one that comes to mind is the new definitions of default and the European, the local new ways of defining our operational definitions, and then making sure that we have those definitions translated into our data structures and into our reporting. That's the first point. The second point is that we need to be cleaner in terms of data and quicker in terms of reporting. We have quarter closes, but we also have monthly closes and day +4, day +2, day +10 reporting is also essential. And let's not forget that we have regulatory requirements in terms of purging and getting out of our systems a certain number of legacy data. So 3 pretty important points going forward.
Sure. And has COVID had any major impact on any of that in terms of, risk assessment, reporting, compliance procedures? I mean, COVID has certainly had an impact on the receivables finance market in terms of demand and the risks on corporates and companies, pressures coming out of any crisis situation, as we saw in 2008, 2009. So do you think COVID is going to have any direct impact on compliance, regulation, risk assessment?
I think in terms of the factoring receivables or payables, I think you have to have a look at both points of view and both types of products. When it comes to the nitty-gritty, when you have a difficult situation like the COVID, you have to maintain and consolidate your risk processes. When times get bad, you always have to keep risk on your radar, even when things are good. So COVID does have effects on the market, yes. And from a risk point of view, we just have to always, like banks and factoring companies do, we have to keep risk on our radar and make sure that the data is available, that the processes keep running, and that we are reconciled and understood in the field when we're handling scoring, when we're handling risk appreciation, and when we're sending money out of the door. Factoring risk is key. We all know that.
Sure. And new regulations come in, and regulations are amended and changed. How do banks keep up with that in terms of conflicting with traditional or old approaches to risk management?
Well, this is all about legacy and how we move forward, and how legacy will not kill us. We need to accompany the changing of our models. We need to make sure that we handle all the data. There's more and more data out there. So we need to get our data crunching optimized. We need to also ensure that we have historical trends that keep running, but also simulation in terms of how we handle these new approaches. Because when we look at risk and our approach, we have more and more data. So therefore, we need more and more IT and tech volume performance to make our daily risk decisions operational and productive. So we do need the right investment from the legacy approach and from the changes within the regulatory system.
So the use of technology can minimize that conflict and help to adapt to adjustments and changes.
We need to change. We need to handle the future way on how we attack data, how we consolidate data, how we distribute data, how we reconcile data, to make sure that we're not just pushing garbage in to push then garbage out.
Sure. And I mentioned the previous crisis, 2008, 2009, the banking crisis, and we saw, as a result of that, quite a bit of new regulation and compliance coming in. Do you think that's gone too far? I mean, do you think there's some might argue that there's an overburden, or they've gone too far in terms of regulation and compliance? Maybe as a result of that crisis, or maybe it would have happened anyway. I don't know. But do you think there's too much of it now?
We have to keep our company safe. We need to push the right value and the right investment in the right place. So I think it would have come anyway, because risk models do change, the environment changes, and within the receivables business, we know all our data. The challenge is the links with the banks through lending using data, through APIs, through our construction of data marts and data warehousing, but the real understanding of what each individual data point means for an overall decision-making situation. So we have terabytes of data. We have tons of data. We have loads of history, but we just we need to make sure that we use it in the right way, and we're looking at the real must-have parts, so we don't get dragged into lots of nice-to-haves, which actually won't change our fundamentals.
Mm.
So yes, we have gone a fair mile on changes, and I think we would have already done that anyway, even if we hadn't gone through the crisis back in 2008-9.
Okay, so you think that the amount of current regulation and compliance is quite reasonable and necessary?
I think it's it's reasonable, it's necessary, and we just need to keep on our radar the amount of investment with regard to the investment we're doing on the business side and on the client side. It's all about getting the right proportion.
And in terms of overcoming the challenges and dealing with the challenges of regulatory demands, then IT is key to that. Would you say it's even central to that?
Well, that's right, because we need to share data. We need to be in line with the reconciliation, the reporting. We have to be neat. We have to be quick. We have to be certain, and we have to put the right investment in the right place to get that value when we're sending our data out to the wider banking community with the regulators.
Yeah. How has technology evolved in the last few years in terms of helping with reporting procedures? Have you seen big advances in that in the last 5-10 years?
Yes, the first thing is the understanding of the data and sharing that understanding. It's not a IT understanding of the data, it's a business-wide understanding of the data. That's the first point. The second point is having a full and rich extraction from the golden source within an IT system. So you have one place and one extraction used by everybody. And the third point is back to the data sharing and making sure that when we share data, we have the right understanding, the same understanding, and that we can link that into our business process. So we get to open factoring, we get to web servicing, we get to APIs, we get to catalogs of APIs, we get to efficient data storage and transmission.
Jonathan Croft, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to hearing more from you in May at Receivables Finance International in London. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Michael. I'll be there. Bye.
Bye now.